The B-Wing isn't exactly one of the most impactful starfighters to play in Star Wars Squadrons. It's slow and has very low maneuverability, and with the meta focusing so much on mobility, the B-Wing just becomes a very easy target for the enemy team. But on today's video, I have the Pro Player Avenger 1 bringing us 3 key tips that you never knew about that will instantly make you a better player with the B-Wing. So much so that you could even play this all the way to Valiant rank. So without further ado, let's get into the interview and show you how to play the B-Wing so much better. Hello everybody, and I am joined with Avenger 1, probably one of the best TIE Defender players on Star Wars Squadrons to date. You're a part of the Randalorian Pro team in Star Wars Squadrons, and today we're going to be talking about the pro and the cons of the B-Wing, as well as 3 big things that you can offer to play the B-Wing in probably high mid-tier, even low high tier as well. So thank you very much for joining, my man.
Thanks for being here, man. Charlie, it's good to finally make a video together, and yeah, we're going to talk about the B-Wing.
So tell me your thoughts on the pros and the cons of the B-Wing.
I think the B-Wing's got the firepower of a god. I think there is no second best ship, really. I mean, the B-Wing can kill everything. It's got more bombs, it's got more guns. It's definitely got the firepower. It's unmatched. Another pro about the ship is its boost rate obviously has been changed so that it can boost for a long time without having to actually stop. And I think honestly that people misunderstand, but the ship's actually quite tough. Like, it has quite a bit of hit points. They're just mostly in the hull of the ship rather than the shields. I think those are the big 3 things about the ship: firepower, toughness, and speed. So
what we're going to be doing is breaking down your gameplay of the B-Wing in dogfights. And that I'm assuming that in each game you're going to be talking about a specific point that probably most B-Wing players or players in general miss about the B-Wing that could really take them to the next level. So we're starting with our first game. I forget this map. I think it's Sisabo, but yeah. So here, what was the first topic you wanted to talk about in this game?
So I think we're going to talk about the beam and the blade direction. You'll notice at the beginning of this dogfight, you'll see that the beam of the ship or the blade of the ship is rotated to the left 90 degrees. I think a lot of pilots out there don't fully understand the nature of how the B-Wing functions, and either they don't run gyro, or when they do run gyro, they don't really get the most out of it, right? And so let me explain. So you'll notice during this fight, right now, exactly right here, there's a lot of pitch, a lot of yaw going on, a lot of rotations to the left and to the right. Again, we see some firepower, obviously, for the B-Wing is quite unmatched, right? But the B-Wing at its natural or normal position, when it's like, I guess you could say in its T-pose position, is very, very strong in its pitch, but weak in its yaw. And what happens is in squadrons, a lot of times, is you're yawing onto your target because you're aiming. Now, if you're rolling a lot onto your target, if you're getting on that way, like again, right there was in yaw, it's hard to track people when you're not rotated 90 degrees. Because what's happening is that when the ship rotates 90 degrees, because in the beam direction, you'll notice that it's more powerful in terms of its pitch. But now that you rotated it offset 90 degrees, it becomes more powerful in yaw, and it still keeps some of its pitch maneuverability. So what happens is the ship's platform, or the aiming platform of the beam, becomes much more stable. And you'll see that this guy right here, you can track him a lot easier than when you're, I guess you could say, in the T-pose position. This is quite, I barely see this from B-Wing pilots. Even at high level, I don't see a lot of B-Wing pilots doing this. And it breaks my heart because it's a part of the B-Wing that I think is quite misunderstood. I think you are not getting the most out of your ship unless you're running gyro. Because not only does the gyro double your auxiliary count, so you get twice the amount of bombs, twice the amount of rockets and whatnot, but also, you know, you have the ability to make the platform more stable for aiming, so you can actually get on target. Because you're not going to be able to escape your target in the B-Wing, so you have no choice but to stand and fight. But if you can get your guns on the target and track them, the B-Wing is going to hose that person so lightning fast. He's not going to have a chance. You'll have half your health left by the time you laze him. So
that is a very significant thing, because myself included, I've never seen B-Wing players play like that that on a 90 degree. And I had no idea it actually affected your pitch and yaw just by rotating the ship in that way. So
you'll notice that guy just right there, right? You want to force the joust, right? You want to get that distance, spin around, and then here we go. We got twice the amount of rockets, right? So just shoot them.
Yeah, definitely. Anyway, I remember obviously one of the biggest shortcomings of the B-Wing is obviously having to drift into the correct position whilst aiming, while most other ships can just use their standard maneuverability without having to drift in that sense. So this is actually a really significant point to make in terms of playing the B-Wing.
And it's not explained to rookie pilots or intermediate pilots at the beginning. You know, you don't really notice these things until you start to fly the B-Wing like this, and then you feel like, oh wow, I feel the difference, you know. And the more stable your shooting platform is, I mean, the more accurate your guns are going to be, the more you can track your target. And so I find flying in like the 90-degree offset position to be far superior than flying, I guess you could say, in the T-pose, because the roll, if on the B-Wing, the roll is a bit slow. So if I was in like this guy right here, I'm tracking the yaw, right? So I'm quick on the tracking, and you're able to get on target. If I wasn't in the 90-degree position there, it would be much more difficult for me to adjust for those small errors in aim. And so that alone is going to bring people's B-Wing gameplay up by twice. I really do believe it. And every time I go into matches and I see B-Wing pilots, they're always standing in the T-pose position. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, you're missing out, buddy.
So the second point that you wanted to talk about, because you're using the rotary cannon here, so I'm interested in why you're using the rotary cannon rather than the standard, and what you can use to negate its negatives.
Sure. We did get a buff to the B-Wing, so the rotary cannon obviously is much less. It reduces the tracking of the B-Wing quite a lot, but that's been buffed so that that downside is not so severe. The rotary cannon, I mean, let's be honest, the damage of the rotary cannon is absolutely nutty. We're talking like 700 something damage without overheating, overcharging. I mean, just that guy right there, right? Like, just, you know, he had more target time on me. He shot first. He shot before me. I had time to spin around, engage him, and kill him before he had a chance to kill me. You know, there's no getting away from the rotary.
For sure.
You know, once it's got you in its cone, it's bad news bears, right? So, you know, utilizing the rotary cannon, you just have to understand a few key points. The spool up time obviously is the biggest one. The reduction in maneuverability is the second, and understanding the nature of how the system works, right? So this guy right here, then I guess the next guy we're coming up on here, you'll notice that I'm pre-spooling my guns as I'm engaging my target, right? So this guy that I've targeted, this interceptor, I'm spinning around and I'm already spinning my guns up before I get around to him. So as soon as I get my guns on target, I don't have any lag time. There's no time that I'm on target that I'm waiting for my guns to spool up. And the best way to do that is by either pre-spooling, so knowing like, okay, this guy right here, I'm going to spool at 800, get within 500, boom, because 500 is your zone to kill. So I didn't have any, like, I guess you could say, wasted time there. This guy, again, will boost. We'll start to spool at around 1200. See, spooling. And once I get within gun range, 800, boom, I'm already on target. There's no time to spool up. So it's as if I never had a spool up time at all. You know what I mean? Because you're not hitting your target at 1300 or 1200 meters. You're not even in gun range, but you're spooling up. And I think that's like, again, it's just not presupposing, but just predicting the flight pattern and what's going to happen and getting ready so that as soon as you get that shot, you've got it, right? And the best way you can do that too is just by feathering it, right? So if you get to the end and you're going to start shooting, but you don't want it to waste your gun power, you'll see right here, see, I'm feathering, and then I've started to shoot. I was even kind of sloppy there, but you get the idea.
Yeah, I think a lot of people forget that with the rotary cannon, just because you've let go of the trigger doesn't mean that automatically all of that charge up before firing is just gone. It naturally goes back down to zero then immediately. So that's something I think a lot of AI players that run rotary cannon on the Y-Wing and the TIE Bomber might actually understand already, because especially when I'm trying to take down AI, I'm always preparing the rotary cannon before I even turn to face the AI, to take them down. So that's something I think you naturally have to learn over time. And but you've given some really perfect examples of how to do it. And
yeah, that was a good one there. I was feathering just tick, 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 just at the end, at the last 10%. And as soon as I got guns, to just let them have it.
Yeah, and it's good to understand that and use the rotary cannon on heavy bomber type ships like these, because whilst the standard is okay, the rotary cannon for the B-Wing is the highest primary DPS in the game, right next to the TIE bombers, which has the same standard 660 DPS, but with the B-Wing, you've also got that dual ion damage as well, which is increasing it just a bit further.
Yes, so it is the best gun in the game. On paper, it has the same DPS as the bomber's rotary, but it's missing out on the ion damage, and that's huge because the time to kill is less, right? So you might have more like the same DPS on paper, but you're gonna hose people a lot faster. The ion damage against defenders is really effective. That's another topic though. But if you do get the shot on a defender, it hoses them quite quickly. But not just that. We're talking like, let's say you've got a support you got to take out. Much faster to kill a support, much faster to kill the shields on a raider as compared to standard guns, right? So it does make a difference.
So let's move on to our third and final point.
So the third point that I think every B-Wing player needs to understand, just like here's that defender, right? 1-2 seconds target time, and he's toast. And he had full shields, double overcharge. So you definitely get that ion damage, the time to kill being very quick, right?
For sure.
So the thing with the B-Wing you got to understand is once we've rotated to 90 degrees, that we have a more stable firing position, we need to understand throttle control, and we need to understand dead drift engagements. If you can master those two things and understand that you want to face your enemy when you engage. You're trying to get the enemy in a position where he's nose to nose with you, because he will lose that fight if you were nose to nose. Like this TIE defender's nose to nose with me, put my shields front, and I just hose the guy. And again, right, most of my health is in my armor or my hull, right? So I didn't really lose much on that one. I could take another fight against like a TIE interceptor easily with this health. So throttle position and understanding dead drift. So we're going to talk a little bit about the dead drift engagement here. You got to understand the beaming. Essentially, you need to visualize it in your head as a bit of like a lightning from old World War II. It boosts in. So we're boosting. Engage drift, rotary in, track the target. Boom, got him, and then we boost out, go to the next target, right? We don't want to get suckered into these long turn fights or these retro drift engagements. We want to tail a target. We want to get guns on the target. We want to hose it, and then if we miss the target or we fumble it or he gets away, we just disengage, create distance, and then force the joust. And the best way we could do that is, let's say, this is a good example for good firing position because of the pitch and yaw. Because we're offset 90 degrees, it's much, much easier to track the TIE fighter here, right? I'm not going to be able to chase him, but it doesn't matter because he's not getting away with those guns. And if you could track it, you have a much more stable platform. There's the dead drift, right? So you always want to come in on a bit of an angle, to engage your target. And don't be afraid to get in front of your target's face and engage him. Again, here's the kind of zoom and boom we're talking about. I get my speed up. Right, I enter a drift, so my turn rate is a much better. Again, get my speed up, enter a drift, track, bang. Okay, next target. And again, because we're 90 degree offset, it's much easier for me to keep my guns on target. And when I'm at half throttle, I have the most turn rate. So here I go, tracking this TIE fighter, got my rotary spooled up, pulling onto target, and there he is.
Because one thing I noticed,
just rinse and repeat.
Yeah, one thing I noticed is with your speed, you're automatically going from 100 to 50 rather than manually bringing yourself down to 50. So for people watching the video, there's an option in your control settings where you can choose to manually control your speed with the up and down of like a controller, etc. Or you can actually have it go in increments of, say, 10%, 25%, or 50%. So I'm assuming what you've got here, although you've got it probably equipped as a shortcut on your HOTAS, for people who are running controller, you can actually do this as well by having it go in increments of 50. So you only actually have to hit down once, and then it automatically brings you down to 50, and then you immediately get that extra turning ability and the maneuverability really needed in the B-Wing. So this isn't just for HOTAS players. You can do it on PC, especially PC, mouse and keyboard, but also controllers, which I think a lot of people think you can't do. It does take a bit of getting used to, because it's much like swapping over from using the menu system to bring your shields back and forth, trying to understand when to double tap, when to only single tap when you're putting your shields front or back. So it's the same sense of that. You have to get used to only hitting down once, rather than holding it down and waiting for the audio cue. But it's definitely worth the trade-off by actually understanding and learning these shortcuts, so you can react faster, like you are here, when you need that extra maneuverability turning at half speed rather than full throttle.
Yep. It's just understanding, again, it's all about the strengths of the ship, right? You're not getting into brawling with the B-Wing. So let's say this TIE fighter decided to say, you know what, I don't like this guy tailing me, and he decided to start engaging me. I'm going to notice that right away, and I'm going to create distance. I'm going to boost away, and then I'm going to force him into a joust, just like this TIE defender here. This guy wants to take a piece out of me, so it's like, okay, well, two can play that game, and he'll lose that trade every time.
You mentioned an interesting thing about shields necessarily. While the B-Wing doesn't have a lot of shields, you mentioned earlier that it was a good indication of when you need to react rather than I'm taking damage. Because one thing about the B-Wing is, as I think you probably mentioned previous as well, the B-Wing has a lot more hull than it has shields. So it's 400 shields on standard for the B-Wing and 1,600 hull for the B-Wing as well, which is probably, I think, on the same level as the Y-Wing. The only one that has more hull than the B-Wing is the TIE Bomber at 21,000. So definitely make good use of that. The B-Wing is a sturdy ship. It's just utilizing the maneuverability and speed the best way you can.
2100 is probably what you're thinking of, because 21,000 would make it a Star Destroyer.
21. I always do that. I always say to people.
I'll tell you, they feel like killing Star Destroyers, those bombers. I tell you, but you are correct. You know, the B-Wing, use the shields as your how do I say this? Your early warning system, right? Like, let's see if we can get here. Tracking this guy again. At some point, I'm sure I'll get hit. And I will target what's got me targeted, and I'll find out who's engaging me. Because the first thing your gut should tell you as soon as you take a shield hit is, okay, somebody is targeting me. Okay, see, I took a shield hit there, and right away I target who's got me targeted, early warning, and boom, I've got him, right? And again, the first thing I did, it's like a, you know, how do I say it this way? It's a muscle memory, right? It's where as soon as I get hit, it's instantly into a boost. Create that deflection, create that you know, aggressive turn speed, and pull your nose onto target, because your strength in the B-Wing is getting the, you know, the joust, the face to face. Is it going to be me or you? Because once you're low health, the B-Wing is at you know, once you're below 50 health, no shields, you've got no choice but to disengage, because you can't win jousts anymore, unless you're shooting at a guy that's not seeing you. So you got to know those, you know, the B-Wing at full health will beat every ship in the game in a joust, bar none, every time. So use those strengths, right?
The last thing I want to mention as well is that you're doing a lot of dead drifting while having power to lasers whilst constantly drifting. Are you boost skipping as well while dead drifting to prolong the boost?
No, so if you boost gas in the B-Wing, it's gonna it's gonna kill your engine power very quickly. You can do it, but you can only get about 4 or 5 boost skips out, and the acceleration is low enough that you're not really getting that much deflection out of it. Which is definitely something. Is definitely one of the big reasons why at very high level play, it's very difficult for the B-Wing to engage targets. It's very hard for it to avoid fire, because you're not always going to get, like this TIE defender here, you know, you're not always going to get people that want to take the joust with you. A lot of really good pilots at the top level will know if a B-Wing's like facing them, like, you got to get out of there. And when it comes to the dead drifting, if you put your power into your guns, or your engine, or your shields, you're going to have a little bit longer of target time. So you'll see here I'm kind of sliding for quite a while in gun power, and it also obviously reduces the decharge time of guns so that you keep more of your gun power when you need it. And this is just your typical classic dead drift maneuver, right? So, and again, that's just muscle memory, time in the cockpit, and that's a fundamental for every ship, not just the B-wing, right? So.
Yeah, the only reason I ask is because obviously they've nerfed the B-Wing's decay rate when you don't have power into boosts, but increased the how much boost you can get from each notch of boost reserve. So drifting seems to also delay that decay, which I find quite interesting. I was just wondering if that applied in any way, but yeah, that's pretty much your three big points about the how to play B-Wing efficiently and hopefully in higher tier gameplay. Of course, we both can probably state that we won't see B-Wings in pro play anytime soon, but
no, you never know.
Yeah, you're right. But like, it would be interesting to see some people in maybe Hero, Valiant maybe actually utilize this effectively, because we don't see enough B-Wings in those tiers, so fingers crossed. But,
well, thank you so much, man, for having me on. It was exciting, man. I really had fun filming this with you.
No worries. Thank you so much for coming on, my man. I really appreciate it. And guys, you can follow Avenger One. Is it on your YouTube or your Twitch? Or either one?
Sure, I can link all that stuff to your Twitch and YouTube.
Okay, perfect. So those will be in the video right now. They'll be popping up, but also be in the pinned comment as well. But Avenger One, thank you very much for joining. And to everyone else that's watching the video, I've been Charlie. You've been watching EcksToo, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, guys.